guys, welcome to today's video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave. I wanted to sit and chat with you guys because I get a lot of comments and a lot of DMs and a lot of questions about whether moving to Seoul is the best choice for somebody, or currently I'm already living in Korea, but I wonder if it's worth moving to Seoul and giving up an epic job. So I get a lot of questions like that, and obviously I can't give anyone a definite answer because everyone's circumstance is different. So I can only really talk about my experience and why I made the decision to move to Seoul. I first moved to Korea and I actually lived in a city called Daejeon for 2 years. And Daejeon is what other Korean people, literally like 80% of people I met who weren't from Daejeon, anytime I said I was living there, they would say, oh, Daejeon, why? That's the boring city. You know, I was coming from a really hectic and chaotic and stressful lifestyle back in New York City, and for me, Daejeon was a really nice change of pace. And then I actually ended up not even living within Daejeon. I lived on kind of like the outskirts and basically in the suburbs, so I didn't even have a subway stop near me, and it was actually surprisingly nice. I'm not one for the countryside or super like nature vibes for my living, but Daejeon was kind of like a nice suburban lifestyle that I got to experience. And I really loved my school. I was working with Epic, and I really loved my co-teachers and my students, and my work-life balance was really, really comfortable. However, with that said, why did I move to Seoul then and give up this like really cushy job with Epic? Towards my second year, I basically developed a whole kind of friend and social circle in Seoul, and I was basically spending every weekend coming up to Seoul, and I was spending a lot of, not just like time, but a lot of money buying train tickets and renting Airbnbs and buying food and all that stuff, and it just seemed really wasteful. And I also felt like the days I wasn't here, I was missing out on things and missing out on events and activities, and I was just having like serious FOMO. So for me, that was pretty much the major trigger on why I decided to move. Especially for a lot of people in Epic, they're always thinking, oh, you know, should I like not re-sign with Epic and move to Seoul and get a job with a Hagwon? Now, I think if you start off at a Hagwon is one thing, to go from Epic to Hagwon is a whole other thing, because you're going from somewhat of a cushy job to this business, and Hagwons are obviously for profit and the hours are much more strenuous, and you do get paid more, but sometimes you just have to think like at what cost, because I think one of the biggest things for a lot of people is that the year they move to a Hagwon, they end up getting so burnt out from it that they leave that year. After their year at the Hagwon, they leave Korea. So, you know, a lot of people come to Korea just to vibe, basically, and to enjoy it and to have a good time. You know, I want to say like 90% of teachers here in Korea are not teachers by trade. They don't really foresee themselves being teachers forever. Have a good time, do your job, go to work, and then be able to like, you know, see the things and do the things you want to do within the country. Totally get it. However, is it worth then giving up Epic to go to a Hagwon? I can't say for certain. For me, I don't really regret the decision. I don't prefer working at Hagwons for sure. I always say like Epic is the better option, but for me, I had a whole life here in Seoul that I needed to be at, and I couldn't do it with Epic because the way like my end date worked and the start dates worked with Seoul Epic here, I couldn't apply through Epic to work in Seoul. So working at a Hagwon was my only option. Now, for people who are first coming to Korea and they've never taught before, you know, you don't have that experience to compare, so you might just be like, well, it's not like I can go from like better to worse. I'm just like going straight into it, starting on flat ground. I do want people to think about a few things. Is that, are you coming to Seoul just because it's Seoul and you've heard it a lot and you like just have the hype of it? Or are you coming to Seoul for certain reasons that you think are more valid? Because for me, I think if you're coming to Korea and you really want to learn Korean, coming to Seoul is probably not the better option, because you're not going to really need to speak Korean, especially if you look like a foreigner. Even if you go to a coffee shop and you ask for something in Korean, they're gonna speak to you in English. My friends have found that really frustrating living in Seoul. So I think if you live outside of Seoul, then you know, your chances of learning Korean are gonna be much better. So maybe you wanna live somewhere else, improve your Korean, and then move here. Food for thought. Another thing is, I think if you have a lot of like relationships and friends here and a social circle that you really value, you know, that is definitely one encouraging reason to move to Seoul. But if you really don't know anyone in Korea, you know, it might be better to like make friends not in Seoul, because Seoul is a little bit heartless, I think. You know, it's not as easy to make friends a lot of times, especially for foreigners. I find that a lot of foreigners make mostly a lot of foreigner friends, so that's also some food for thought. Another thing is, obviously I know a lot of people come here because they love K-pop and K-dramas and all that stuff. That's something you can still enjoy while not living in Seoul. If you live super out in the boonies, a little bit harder to enjoy, but at the same time you can still come up to Seoul on the weekends. There's also concerts in Busan, there's concerts in Incheon. You know, K-pop is not just, it's obviously centered in Seoul, but it's still really accessible throughout the country, and it's obviously much more accessible within Korea than outside of it. So either way, you're closing in on that gap. Anyways, guys, I hope that was kind of helpful, but if you have any like more specific questions, obviously I'm happy to answer them down below in the comments, or if you want to DM me, that's also cool. I wanted to make a specific video addressing it because I've gotten a lot of questions kind of throughout the years, and I realized I never kind of talked about pros and cons of it all, and I hope this was some sort of like insight at least for you guys. But again, let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next one. Bye!